locals who live within this community, keeping up the tradition of 200 years, including the 200-year-old Kudijin bakery specialty. The very first bakery that was built and opened in Thailand is in this community. The very first bakery. So the very first bakery that was brought and opened in Thailand was by the Portuguese. There's a lot of Portuguese influenced food in Thailand, lots of Portuguese influenced sweets and bakeries, and like muffins and pastries, lots of Portuguese influence, and even the Chinese were influenced by the Portuguese. So this part of the place that we're going to, there's a lot of mixture of culture. The Portuguese, the Chinese, the Thai, the Muslims, they all kind of coexisted together in this community. They still do, and we'll see that when we get there. There's the church, there's the temple, there's the shrine, the Chinese shrine, there's the mosque, and there's the people who still run this 200-year-old bakery, passed down from generation to generation, still follow the ancient recipe of this pastry, 200-year-old pastry, translated very loosely to the foreigner cake, because that was the first cake that the Portuguese brought to Thailand. So it's a very old recipe. Sugar, flour, and duck egg, and on top of the muffin type thing, they the Chinese influence, they add dried fruits on top and raisins. So we're gonna taste 200-year-old pastry, drink some really delicious coffee, go around, maybe look at the other Thai, Portuguese influenced dishes, learn about the culture, look at the old parts of the old streets and alleyways, and just get lost. It's a very big melting pot of culture. Just the way that Bangkok was a very central part of the trading route here in Southeast Asia. Portuguese were the first explorers to come to this part of the world. They came to Thailand, they came to Philippines, they came to the parts of China, Hong Kong. For example, if you guys know anything about Chinese pastries, the egg tarts, they are basically the Chinese version of the pasta de nata, which is the Portuguese like custard pastry puff, pastis de nata. And there's the Hong Kong style custard pastry, or the egg tarts, which is so delicious, and it is influenced by the Portuguese, and it's one of my favorite Chinese pastry, but it is influenced by the Portuguese that came and settled and set up their bakeries here. Yeah. If someone says coffee, I have to have a cup. Awesome, Jennifer. Sahara, thank you so much. 2 months, cheers. Looking forward to this steep us in history. Thank you so much, Sahara. So definitely we're going back in time. It's a very old community, still the same for the last 5 generations. We're gonna eat some 200-year-old pastries. Don't worry, they were made this morning. The recipe is 200 years old. We're gonna go into some old houses and back alleyways, and there's there is the modern touch to it. So I think we'll see some street art, visit some temples, visit some cool places, and just see like there's a very different vibe in this little pocket in the middle of Bangkok, which is amazing. I think that's so exciting.
Oh my, Portuguese pastries are very underrated.
Yes. Right, bro. So I am so excited. We're gonna get the foreigner pastry, Kudijin muffin pastry. Thank you so much, bro, for your bits. Bro. Thank you so much. Thank you. What's my favorite Thai dish in Thailand? Oof. You know what? Oopsies. It depends on where in Thailand I am. Like, I love the southern food, masaman. So my gap year, well, it was a 6-month gap year that my parents helped finance, and then they were like, well, look, if you want to continue traveling, you've got to find a way to finance it yourself. So we came back to Bangkok after Christmas that year in 2015, 16, whatever. And I took a training here in downtown and I did the CELTA English teaching program, which is Cambridge-run curriculum to learn how to teach English as a second language. And then I got a job in Vietnam, and I started teaching English in Vietnam. I did all sorts. I taught kindergarten. I taught teenagers. I taught adults. I private tutored. I taught business English. I worked really hard, saved some money, and then I got a job back here in Thailand as a scuba instructor, which is how Gaspar and I met 7-ish years ago in Indonesia. So I went back to diving, and so we were living on Koh Phangan Island here in the south of Thailand. And one year there was a very horrible monsoon that wiped out all the business on the island. All the tourists had to be escorted off the island, and our entire village was flooded. And we didn't have any work. I had nothing to do. Gaspar was writing his book. He's a travel writer and photographer. So he was working on his 4th book, and I had nothing to do. So he was like, why don't I'll set up like a, little computer set up in our little wooden Thai house in the middle of the jungle. Why don't you play some Stardew and stream for a little bit?